Thank you, Hyperline, and the previous keynote speech and panelists for very comprehensive insights in Chapter 2. Let me repeat the agenda for today's ETHAsia. The Chapter 1 is the past and present of Ethereum development, and the second part is the collaboration between different ecosystems and the communities. And now we are merging into Chapter 3. After discussing the community building, interoperability, and those technical topics, let's discuss how could we build products could foster mass adoption in the future. Let's join me in welcoming our panelists, Gavin Wang, who will be the moderator of this panel, CIO of SNZ Holding. Kay, CEO of HashKey Eco Labs. Anurag Arjun, co-founder of Avail projects. Michael Dong, co-founder of Brevis. And last speaker is Terence Lam, co-founder of Taiko. Welcome to the stage.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great honor to be here. I'm Gavin Wang, Chief Investment Officer for SNZ Capital. It's very honor to host today's panel, and we have with all the distinguished guests. So probably can we have each of you to do a quick introduction about yourself, and also a little bit more about the project, as well as what is our value positioning in the entire Ethereum ecosystem, and what we do to contribute more. Probably, can we go with Kay?
Yeah,
thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, guys. I bet you guys have seen me a lot during these 3 days. I'm Kay, and I'm now the leader for our Layer 2 chain, HashKey chain. We're doing this Web 2 and Web 3 infra and bridge. We want to bring more institutional fund and friends to build on-chain, and we are focused on RWA, MMF, stablecoins. So the relationship between HashKey and Ethereum, I think from the historical record is from our founder, Dr. Xiao, but now for HashKey chain, we are actually a Layer 2 we built with OPSEC. And for one hand, we got this secure and ecosystem from Ethereum, and if for the other hand, it's more suitable, and we building more compliant, friendly infra to support institutional requirement. Hope we enjoy this day. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay. Anurag, please.
Hi, Anurag, co-founder of Avail, previously co-founder Polygon. Been in the space for 8 years now. Avail builds infrastructure for the roll-up-centric roadmap. We build infrastructure for teams such as Optimism, Arbitrum, Starkware, zkSync, and others to scale and connect to each other.
Yeah, thanks, Anurag, and also he flying from Dubai. Thanks for the large commitment and the support. Brevis, please. Oh, sorry, Michael, please.
Yep. Hi, everyone. This is Michael from Brevis. Brevis is a smart off-chain verifiable computing engine. Now, what is that? Well, one way to think about it is like there are two ways to scale Ethereum. The roll-up-centric roadmap is scaling Ethereum by using parallelization. Like you have multiple different kind of domains running the same kind of thing. And for off-chain verifiable computing, it is scaling Ethereum through asynchronized computing. So it's a different type of scaling. Now let me kind of quickly explain that. For rollups, even though we have very fast rollup today, it is still a single chain and asynchronous computing paradigm. So even on rollups, you cannot have a rollup run faster than single server. So how can we actually achieve unified liquidity, unified user state, without any kind of segmentation, fragmentation, but at the same time, extremely high scalability? Well, a way to do that is to offload some very expensive and hard-to-do computation from the on-chain world to off-chain world, and do that computation at the same time, generate a ZK proof of that and verify it back on-chain as if the entire computation happened on the blockchain directly. So yeah, this is like what we do. We have two products. One is called Pico VM, which is generalized ZK VM that can enable a lot of things for Ethereum, like native rollup and better scalability and better interoperability. And we also have a product called the ZK coprocessor that is already powering many Ethereum ecosystem, DeFi application like Euro Money, PancakeSwap, many others as well to enhance their user experience that we can talk more about.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Terence.
Thank you. Hi. I'm Terence Lam. I'm the co-founder of Taiko. We are a ZK rollup Ethereum layer 2 protocol. Actually, Taiko is a very special layer 2 in a few ways. One is we are the only type 1 Ethereum layer 2. What it means is any DApp that runs on Ethereum today is a one-button press deployment onto Taiko, a simple RPC reconfiguration, and it will run, but faster, cheaper, better. So you don't need to rewrite any code, recompile, you don't need to redo your security audit. That's very important for developer experience. One way to how it works very well is since we mainnet launch last June until now, about 10 months, our protocol has went through about 60 plus upgrades. It didn't affect any of DApps, hundreds of DApps that has already deployed on Taiko. Nothing they need to do because we're fully Ethereum compatible. So whatever we build and improve under the hood, the DApp that is already deployed would just run better and faster and more efficient. That's one special thing. The other thing special about Taiko is we are the only fully decentralized layer 2. We have dozens and several dozens community proposers on layer 2. And we also have multi-proof, the discussion that Vitalik and Eli and everyone talked about just now. We have mainnet for 10 months already, so we are a fully multi-proof, fully decentralized layer 2, the only one that's mainnet in the market. And actually, since our mainnet, we have so far processed 700 million transactions on-chain. They are all secured by on Ethereum by Ethereum layer 1 validators. So our proposals on layer 2, they propose blocks, but they are not a sequencer. They don't sequence our block. That's how we ensure end-to-end security from layer 2 to layer 1. And that's how Taiko is special. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Terence. And I also just want to say congratulations to Terence and Taiko, because Taiko last night just got listed on Revolut, one of the largest fintech app in Europe. It's not it's not always like it's not typical exchange, but it's kind of shows the Web2 guys are having more attraction into Web3 projects. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we think that's a very important milestone because for the next phase of Ethereum ecosystem, life cycle, mass adoption is very important. So Revolut is one way that they are regulated in 50 countries, and they have over 50 million everyday users who use digital bank, and now they can use, Great British pound or euro or US dollar or any currency fiat to buy, Taiko token and to enjoy the app's experiences on our chain. We think that's also one very important milestone. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Great. So I will just supplement a little bit here, given today is ETHAsia. So as you're aware, HashKey definitely is the earliest backer for Ethereum in Asia. Dr. Shao is wrote the first institutional check to EF. And but the rest of the other guest speakers just be very humble. It's Anurag is I would just highlight Anurag is also the co-founder for Polygon, has been in the industry for quite a long time and made lots of great contribution. Michael also did Solar. Solar is also a very OG project. And also Terence is also used to be the co-founder for Loopring. That was kind of layer 2 even before we created the world layer 2. So welcome all the OGs. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the main topics today, right? Because nowadays, all of you guys are working. Well, in my opinion, you are working. The project you guys are working on kind of a middleware, right? It's kind of between the end application and also the fundamental layer of L1, right? So either no matter it's like a DA project or like the off-chain kind of verifiable kind of computation or what else. Like. So from your perspective, right, so, well, because we used to choose this kind of direction to do projects, it means that you feel like between the very fundamental infra and the application, there should be something missing, right? So maybe developers, they have a bad experience to really push out the application, etc. So would you mind share a little bit more from your perspective, what are missing here and what are like you guys are improving and potentially could bring more adoption for application developers? Should we start with Terence, maybe?
Sure, I can offer my 2 cents, even though the whole industry is just about 15 years. It's still very young compared to Web 2 that we went through, but I can share some of my experiences. Everyone talk about the impossible triangle. You know, since the beginning of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the way until now, there's so many layer 1, layer 2 chains. Everyone is trying to strike the right balance, try to find the right spots, security versus scaling versus cost, right? It's like the impossible triangle. So almost every project has been making trade-offs one way or the other in order to favor another side of the impossible triangle. Having said that, over the past 15 years, I'm happy to see that new technology has actually start to help us to tackle this impossible triangle and trying to, achieve everything. So taking Taiko as an example, we chose end-to-end security, decentralization, and scaling as most important 2 elements out of the 3. What we are sacrificing is actually some user experiences, and I said that because using in order to be fully decentralized, it means we don't run a centralized sequencer. It means that layer 1 Ethereum validators are securing our block. That means that our transaction can only finalize in 12 to 20 seconds instead of instant confirmation. So we gave up on user experience a little bit, right? And that has been the case since our mainnet for 10 months. However, having said that, actually we are currently running a testnet called pre-confirmation. We work very closely with Ethereum Foundation, with our partners Nethermind, OpenZeppelin, Gattaca, and we have already launched our testnet. That with pre-confirmation, actually we can maintain the decentralization, maintain the low cost of every transaction, which is less than a cent per transaction on-chain, and still have sub-second instant confirmation. And we expect that to be mainnet within the next months. And so by before end of Q2, actually I would say in our case, we are milking the benefit of 15 years of technology improvement. And finally, we, in our opinion, tackling, resolving the impossible triangle to the full, right? After that, if you imagined, you can run a fully on-chain Web3 game whole day long, and it will only cost you, the user, less than the cost of a cup of Starbucks. Basically, you don't think about, which transaction need to happen off-chain, which transaction need to happen on-chain. You just use it as, transparent. So I think we are not there yet, but we are very, very close to that happening. We'll see it, like just next month.
Yeah, thanks, Terence. Michael, would you mind share a little bit more?
Yeah, so like the reason we started the Brevis is actually very much motivated by application needs. Let me kind of give a very, very specific example, right? So like if you look at every centralized exchanges today, Binance, Coinbase, whatever, they all have this common feature in them that is like VIP trader fee discount program. Like if you're a VIP trader, big trader, you trade a lot this month. Next month, when you're trading, you get a fee discount. But if you look at every single decentralized exchange today, like PancakeSwap, Uniswap, QuickSwap, you name it, none of them has this feature. Why is that? Well, it turns out that building these kind of features on blockchain, even if it is on layer 2, very fast layer 2, is still prohibitively expensive, because it requires a smart contract to actually access historical on-chain data. You might think, wait, like historical on-chain data, we're talking blockchain, we should be able to access historical on-chain data by looking at the block header, right? Well, but block header is indeed a summary of everything that happened in the past on blockchain. But to access the actual data, you need to essentially unzip the blockchain block header, which is an insanely expensive computation. So what do we have now, like as an entire blockchain ecosystem, is that we have a lot of world computers, and some of them are very fast, like as layer 2 rollup blockchains. But none of these blockchain computers actually can exceed the processing power of a single computing server. To do this kind of, even to do this kind of a very simple, conceptually very simple task. So this is like where, Brevis comes into play to solve this problem. Like we have parallelization. Now we need to scale the processing capability of each of the computers, right? So that's what Brevis is here to do. That we migrate some of the very complex computation off to an off-chain environment, and then do the computation and generate something called a ZK proof to attest to the correctness of the computation and bring it back to the blockchain, so the blockchain can very cheaply and easily verify the proof, so it can consume the computation result as if the entire complex and heavy computation was done on blockchain directly. So that has immediate use cases. Like we have been powering like about more than 10 DEXs to build their intelligent DEX features to essentially drive a way to customize and tailor user experiences based on their historical behavior. But there are more than that. Like for things like native rollups and to enable another biggest problem right now is the interoperability between different blockchains. That is like, you have intent bridges, but intent bridges like really just to have someone front you the liquidity as a liquidity provider, but the liquidity provider still needs the overhead of like slow bridging across different ecosystem, right? Also, off-chain computing can solve specifically that problem as well by making the settlement process much faster. Because it can actually allow you to verify if you can do real-time Ethereum EVM proving using things like Brevis Pickle, you can actually kind of have a much better underlying settlement layer that powers this kind of a unified chain vision. So yeah, this is like two very concrete examples.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michael. I think regarding interoperability, Anurag should have a lot to say as well, because he just showed me a demo about what they have achieved. Do you mind add on this?
Yeah, of course, I can share about the interrupt part. I mean, which is like a burning problem, of course. But I just want to take a moment before that to, kind of zoom out, because, all of us have been in this space for, like a lot of years. We've looked at the maturing of the technology, for example, and so on. And really, we sometimes, you also kind of have to ask the question very hard in terms of, what is the exact pitch that we are making to developers today, right? Like, I mean, when we joined blockchains, it was very clear that, Bitcoin had come in. It was like this whole state-of-the-art new system that had come up. Ethereum was the first general purpose, and I came into the space, Mo came into the space because we wanted to scale Ethereum. So is Terence as well, in general, I think when I talk to new devs, right, they don't really have the enthusiasm for blockchains as, let's say, developing for LLMs or AI, for example, right? And so essentially we have to kind of take a step back and see, really, as an industry, feel what are we kind of, pitching, what are we selling, what are the state-of-the-art apps that can be built with this infra, right? A lot of this space is basically a lot of PvP, everyone is fighting and everyone, all the L2s are fighting with each other, Ethereum is fighting against, Solana, and, then always there's a new L1 that is coming up, which is more faster, better, whatever, right? So, but the thing is, what has succeeded? Things like, trading is, of course, has tremendous market fit, right? A big exchange experiences a big hack, and they're not phased because, it's very profitable in general, right? And if you look at the iterations, ICOs, DeFi, NFT, meme coins, right? All of these are some variations of trading in general. There are the stable coins which have found product market fit, for example, especially getting people access to the dollar in economies where access to the dollar is very hard, for example. Payments, like a lot of people talk about payments, but I think localized payments, I don't think blockchains can. I mean, something like an Alipay or a WeChat is much better to pay within a country. Maybe cross-border payments could be one example. So I'm saying basically the thing is blockchains are great as a disintermediation mechanism, great as an unstoppable platform mechanism, right? Like you cannot shut the platform down. Now we have to be, like a lot of people, when you kind of explain some of this in a more Web 2 traditional benefits aspect, people try to listen, right? Like, but when we kind of harp on a lot of the decentralized this thing, for example, verifiability, I think, is very important property. Decentralization is good for a certain use case, not for all use cases. So we have to kind of mix and match, and then we have to have very sharp focus on education of the audience. Otherwise, like right now, it's basically Bitcoin, for example, has moved away from the rest of the market, and so you have to. We are actually competing in this very small niche market, right? Like, and we have to figure out how to grow the pie. Like, how can we kind of like get on, like if trading has tremendous product market fit, can we tokenize all assets of the world, for example, and so on, right? Like, I mean, so that is something that we have to reflect on.
Yeah, thanks, Anurag. Kay, would you mind share a bit more? Thanks.
Yeah, as I mentioned, actually we are focusing on bringing those traditional assets on chain, but the situation and the difficulties is far more beyond our expectation. So we were thought we could just bring this fund, for example, MMF on chain, just to projection of their token. They could buy and sell off chain, and we on chain we could just need to monitor of this value and monitoring this action for purchase and sell. But actually, for example, if it's a private fund and we are lack of data resources to put it on chain for oracles, it's a totally new challenges for them to recognize all this data from this traditional finance asset. For example, if I'm a PE and I got my own rules, my regulation or requirement from my LP, so I need to report the statement of the net value to them every month or every week. Most of the time is every semi-annual. So for oracles, it's can't acceptable. It has to be like real time to reflect on chain, especially when we are talking about lending perps. It can't be like this. We can't just receive the statement from the fund and to record it on chain manually. So it's really hard for us at the very beginning to discuss the model, the recognition methodology with Oracle. So, but finally, luckily, we got support from Chainlink and Supra, and we make it happen to recognize this asset, especially MF on chain. Now we're doing this to let DeFi Llama to recognize the data resources from Chainlink to reflect it on chain at the TVL. So the situation for HashKey chain is we got this 100 million TVL from MMF on chain, but in DeFi Llama, we could only see 1.24 million. That's the huge gap between the real TVL and the asset on chain. But also the problem here is that now the traditional asset on chain cannot be, it's not interactable. We could buy and sell, but for secondary trading, it cannot work. And this part is hugely reliable for the regulatory, I can see it's released, but also it's strongly related to the regulatory attitude. Now the MMF on-chain cannot be traded among us. We could buy and purchase, but we can't doing the secondary trading. But hopefully, we are expecting in the next half year of 2005, we could do this on-chain. So that's a real time that every single retail users could buy this MMF on-chain with a single digit of asset of like $10, $100. That's the really big start for mass adoption of a traditional finance on-chain. Yeah.
Gotcha. Actually, Kay, I have a question. I think lots of audience may have a similar question as well. Because like, for HashKey, the entire group is very big. It's as an early backer for Ethereum ecosystem, also invested in lots of the other layer 2 as well. I'm kind of wondering why the group decided to do a HashKey chain by yourself, and from your perspective, what's the key differentiation and the focus? You mentioned some of the like RWA, etc. So would you elaborate a little bit more on this?
Okay, thank you so much for asking this. I've been asking this for a lot, but actually, we are doing this step by step, but with a lot of uncertainty. We launched this chain, the mainnet, at December of last year, but at that time, we are just only want to be the infra for DeFi or TradeFi to be a reliable and secure infra. But things have changed a lot during this past 3 months. We got this huge demanding from traditional finance to do this RWA, and also for Web3, we don't seeing too much new narratives or new innovations recently. So currently we have this two-way requirement for the Web2 asset. They want the better liquidity and the real-time settlement and cross-border, cross-region distributional channel, all things like this. But for Web3, we need the real good asset. We need a real thing that gave more value for those stablecoin holders, for those one use stablecoin as a payment settlement method. They need this asset to get on board, or even for BTC holders. If I'm a whale for BTC, I'd like to have this secure and a reasonable return rather than to have this risk to lose my principal. So we have heard this requirement for both sides. And for HashKey, we got this global license and compliance framework. We know how to migrate this gap between Web2 and Web3. And what we want to do, technical improvement is a fundamental for public chain. But for us, I think our strongest part is to do the operation, especially in compliant-friendly operation. And also we could synergy this our resources in Web2 and Web3 to be the bridge and translator to let both sides know each other better. That's why we got a lot of friends from both Web2 and Web3. And actually, especially in Hong Kong and Asia, a lot of Web2 institutions, their first choice and the first step to Web3 innovation, it has to be HashKey, because we got this historical record, or we got this compliant understanding, and that's why we are trying to do this. But it's really hard and difficult. But if I look around for this whole industry, I can imagine another entity or institution could be suitable for do this. But it's a trend.
Okay, got you. Just now, I think every speaker talk a little bit more about the tag and differentiations of, because all of you are providing different tag solutions. Someone focusing on DA, someone focused into probability, some verifiable computation, etc. I think because for some of the audience might be, they might need a bit more about very concrete, vivid example, therefore easier for them to understand. And so. Can each of you give some, besides, since Anurag mentioned payment, right? So, and also Kay mentioned RWA, Michael mentioned the discounted brokerage, the specific user case. Can we also, can each of you also give maybe another example, or some of the sector you think is we are expecting application will boom up, right? I understand Taiko has a huge gaming sector, etc. So, I mean, could you give a little bit, which sectors in your mind will be super promising, in short term, and also give some example of your clients, the kind you are saving, and what kind of pain point you are kind of serving to solve the problem. Right? Actually, Michael did a good job. But maybe you can share another one to give the audience more concrete ideas. So who? Oh, yeah, Anurag, do you want to start? Thanks.
Yeah. So I mentioned so we've seen trading work on blockchains. We've seen now emergence of RWA assets. But I think essentially, when we talk about mostly about RWA, for example, Kay has been talking about money market funds and such, right? These are very heavily regulated, right? By the securities regulator and the banking regulator, for example. There is this happy medium, the private credit market, for example, private equity. Capital markets, for example, which do not have the, which are able to kind of, adapt to this technology better. So I'll just give you a concrete example. Something in crypto, for example, any big project launches, most people have an opportunity to buy into the token at some point in time early, right? If you take something like OpenAI, ChatGPT, right? When will retail get access to the OpenAI stock? It's already valued at $280 billion at its last round valuation, right? whenever it makes it to an IPO, for example, which is after a few years, hopefully if it works, it'll be probably at 500 billion, 1 trillion, whatever, right? Like I mean, and so retail. So basically, democratizing access to financial instruments, really, like I think that is a very key component or key use case. Like, I mean, it's very easy to explain. Like, do you have access to any of the top AI companies' ownership at this point in time? And the answer is it's only available to certain VCs, certain accredited investors, basically people who already have access to those financial instruments. What we are trying to do in blockchains is, can we democratize this? Can we bring ownership of, let's say, an OpenAI, a ChatGPT, an Anthropic, or a cloud to people in the same vein, right? Like you have access to, like a Taiko, like a seller, Brevis hopefully soon, like an Avail, HashKey, for example, and so on.
Yeah, thanks, Anurag. Michael?
Yeah, I think on the application front, like, I provided this very specific example, but on a broader view, like, I think DeFi is going to have a renaissance at the moment. I think there's no question that DeFi has very strong product market fit, and like that actually, the entire sector basically demonstrates the product market fit of the blockchain ecosystem. But DeFi, in the last, DeFi basically evolved like in 2-3 years to cover the entire history of traditional finance, like in 200 years. But DeFi has a problem right now. Like it has an accessibility problem. It has accessibility problem for the users. It has accessibility problem for the assets, kind of, right? So, and I think, like, I'm very confident, like, in the next couple of years, both of these accessibility problem are going to be solved. So on the, on the user side, we can already see all the centralized exchanges, like Binance, BigGat just announced, OKX is a leader in this, have all started to bridge their centralized exchange users to use the entire DeFi ecosystem. And the reason for that is because DeFi itself is providing some value that is just not attainable in centralized systems. Right now, people say, okay, it's like a meme token trading. You cannot list the token fast enough to actually allow user to access to these tokens. But it's more than that, right? So imagine the future. Now, this ties to the second accessibility problem. Like now, if we have like more kind of assets in real world assets, that is actually kind of a breaking the niche of crypto native or blockchain native assets classes in DeFi to bridge into money market fund or like a kind of a private equity fund to have that access on chain. And you're not just accessing that. Hopefully, like that kind of a regulatory problem Kay mentioned can actually be solved in the future, that we can have like more close composable integration into the entire DeFi ecosystem. When that happens, DeFi's accessibility problem is going to be solved. Like, exchanges and centralized entities going to provide the user a way to actually use on-chain product with like a much more wide and kind of a much larger variety of assets to choose from. And I think that's kind of extremely exciting to see in the next maybe 5 years to come. And I think that's kind of going to be categorized as DeFi renaissance.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Terence?
Yeah, this is a very good question, actually. And to answer this question, I actually has to dial back to the past 10 years. I remember 10 years ago when there's a lot of project being created. Like multi-chain wallet is like so popular, right? All the capital has been poured into it. And then we have NFT, DeFi summer, A year later, we have the DeFi summer. Everyone talk about that. And then a year later, we have NFT. So last night, I was at HashKey offices watching the movie about, Beepos and all the NFT, digital arts. And then we have MemeCoin, right? It's like until last year, even people like me who's been in the industry for 10 years, what the hell is meme, right? So what I learned in the past 10 years is the only thing that is consistent in this young industry is that there's always change. And if you look back into Web 2, how Web 2, disruptively innovate Web 1 or traditional, economy, the use cases are things that didn't exist in the Web 1 space. So being as Taiko, you know, I mentioned that we are type 1. We're fully compatible with Ethereum, so we are supposed to be a generic chain that we you know, and as a project, we have Taiko Takeoff project where we actually do ecosystem investment, incubation, co-marketing, you know, a lot of things to help different ecosystem verticals to grow, right? We have a pretty big gaming space. DeFi is picking up a lot of speed, etc. Having said that, you know, I personally feels like the real, you know, killer app that actually will fully showcase the whole world, you know, how blockchain can change how we live our life every day, how we achieve our goal every day, would be something that people never thought about. And I use an example like AI. You know, the most recent hype is around AI and blockchain. And people start thinking about, you know, very conventional way how AI can be put on blockchain. I personally believe that first, AI and blockchain has a natural match, but it's also a natural mismatch. And there's a lot of debate on this on chain. But having said that, I think they would definitely overlap. If we, for example, if we believe that next year there will be 300,000 autonomous car and, you know, 200,000 autonomous robot at everyone's home, let's think about that, right? Can you use the traditional financial system to help the autonomous car and autonomous robot to operate on a day-to-day basis? Is it really AI agent helping us to invest our digital asset on-chain? Is that the application that AI crossover with blockchain? I would like to believe that we need to, as an industry player, we together should continue to explore something that even at my old age, you know, at my 10 years experience with crypto, we haven't seen, and it would totally change. Because a lot of things are just around the corner. I have no doubt. You know, I just came back from San Francisco and I use Waymo, and I'm living in, I'm using, I'm called Uber car, and it's autonomous driving. And I don't understand why I need to use the Uber app and then pay with fiat and then cash. You know, how does robot actually pay to recharge itself, get services, right? So I believe that yes, we as Taiko, we are helping, you know, GameFi, DeFi, SocialFi, NFT, Metaverse, everything. But I think we still are in a journey, in early days of journey, that actually discover the real breakaway, disruptive use cases that hasn't been discovered yet. But it's around the corner. And I think one important element, I also came back from New York from DAS, most important element is PayFi. You know, PayFi isn't possible for a few reasons. If you use a centralized, you know, layer one, then I think the bank, the traditional financial institution will be very worried. If you use a fully decentralized infrastructure, I think the use case, user experience, like I said, right, 15 to 20 seconds to confirm is not good enough for the user. But those all will be resolved very soon. And PayFi itself is not just a use case. It actually enables autonomous car, autonomous robot, and combine the potential of new use cases that we never imagined ever before, you know, because robot is ready, right? Autonomous car is ready, and now PayFi is ready, and banking can comfortably trust fully decentralized end-to-end scaling solution. I think we'll be surprised, and I think we'll be surprised if not in 2025, early 2026. That's my take on new verticals.
Well, actually, Terence was like, I was about to ask about the timing. So Terence just gave shared his answers, like 2025, 2026 could be the, maybe because of the timing. I personally just want to echo what Terence just mentioned. Like for AI plus crypto, I think there are two principles. Like one is like definitely if you're expecting AI robots coming to the markets, you're not expecting someone to monopolize the markets, right? You need to have a decentralized governance to some extent. Secondly, it's like about you need an open finance system to support the future development of AI, crypto, etc. Okay, so apologize, I skipped like a K, but like I will come back to you right now, given the time. So I was still about to ask the timing question, right? Some people are asking, but you know, making comments say, this is the best time ever. Also like the worst time ever. So like the best time in the sense, you know, like there are lots of kind of constructive progress from tech perspective, or regulation perspective, the governments, especially in the US, become very kind of aggressively open-minded to digital asset. But and also the adoption of BTC ETF, Ethereum ETF, etc. As Dubai is very open-minded, like Hong Kong become very open-minded. But some people may argue, on the other hand, there are so many scammers, and it's given basically no entry barrier, given the democracy or whatever in the space, encouraged some of the bad behavior as well. And also some people are frustrated, to some extent, all the trading stuff, it's not day-to-day application. Just Professor Ali just mentioned the toothpaste test, right? You need to use that every day. It's for layman, it's not happening. So what would you view about this kind of comments? And when did you see the real application is coming? So probably, can we start with Kay?
We have been asked a lot about how to face this regulatory and compliance requirement. But for us, I don't think the compliance is a boundary or burden for the whole industry. Kind of somehow it set up the limitation or bottom for we do things. If there's no framework, there's no direction. So this is what I believe. Only if we got some certain level of framework or common sense or consensus, we could have invited more people or more institutions to put their large-scale money on-chain. That's the start point. But I don't think the regulation should be settled or governed by a single entity. It should be universal, or in the most cases, for the most common senses, it could be on-chain organization, or it could be consensus globally. We don't need to rely on one single entity or one single country authority to do that. That's the tricky part. And then I feel for application part, we are using actually multi-layer of economic activities. For example, we use bank to deposit our money, and we also will buy some NFT or other things, or something we dare to lose the money. So we could hierarchy ourselves for the investment allocation or where you put your money, but still you can have a place to put most of your money safely and with a reasonable return. But also you could have this flexibility. You could also buy meme. You could also using this hype to do some speculation. This industry should not be in one direction. It should be multi-layer and multi-direction. People could find the right way to play and the right thing to be invested. And also, but one thing we need to do is that we build this infra. For example, we're doing this on-chain KYC and AML system for those financial institutions. If they want to set these rules for their own client, they could do that. But if the project or institution, they don't need any KYC or based on their original requirement, they could do it as well. So for a chain itself, we could do this infra. We offer choices for different people and different groups. That's what we could do.
So you think still there are some missing pieces? Are you expecting 2025, 2026, we are having the WeChat or TikTok moment for application, or not?
For our perspective, our side, we are expecting maybe the second half of this year, we could see a breakthrough from the regulatory side. But for mass adoption, or as I just mentioned, for the massive trading on-chain to buy traditional financial asset, maybe we got 2 or 3 years way to go. And we are seeing more RWA asset, not only for the financial part. We got all this non-financial RWA could be built on-chain, and we will provide by this liquidity and marketplace for them to build together. So I'm thinking about 2 to 3 years to set up the rules.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Anurag, what's your view about the timing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what we've been successful so far is, in general, we've succeeded in creating a global system, where people can tap into the system from any place in the world with minimal friction in terms of, I mean, of course, you have to kind of on-ramp and stuff like that, right? Which is the hard part, which is basically, where a lot of the friction still remains, which is being solved by OTC players, liquidity providers, off-ramp, on-ramp providers. But technically, what I think we've reached a point, and the like the block space problem, the scalable block space problem has been solved to a large extent. We have hundreds of chains now, so it's not like we don't have cheap fees at the moment, right? Like we have cheap fees. So things are getting better and better, like especially connecting chain infrastructure, that is getting better and better. I think the real opportunity is if you kind of zoom out also, the world is also changing. Like Trump's announcing tariff after tariff, and like stuff like that, and so the world order is changing. People are also, and if you could see throughout the world, the wealthy, the rich are getting richer. The like the middle class and the poor people are not moving ahead as we think, right? Like, and so if you kind of look at from a angle of people looking into crypto, they are really looking at opportunities to earn a little bit more yield, a little bit more income, for example. And it's not only the crypto market, right? Like people invest money into the stock market, into real estate, for example, right? Like, so these are all, people are always on the lookout for opportunities, whether locally in their own country or globally. What the blockchain industry has done is has given access to these users to the infrastructure where they can kind of make use of an opportunity from anywhere, whether you're from Brazil, where you from Africa, doesn't matter, right? Like if you have the want to put in the effort and put in the work, you should be able to access, right? Like, and so I think that should be what should we should be like doubling down, and I think this is going to come very soon, right? Like, I mean, it's taken the shape of various forms like ICOs and NFTs and meme coins, but I think like iterations of this will come where like essentially the blockchain is essentially opportunity seeking platform really for people all around the world.
Thanks so much, Anurag. Michael?
Yeah, so like about the current times, right? So like I think one thing that I learned in the last 7 years of building this space is that the development pace of a product and technology has a much bigger inertia than like the flow of capital and attention. That's like a very important thing to understand. Like when the market is hot, like when the ETF got approved and a lot of capital flows into this space and everyone raised a lot of fund. But if you look at the speed of product and the technology development, it is still growing at a relatively steady speed. It doesn't actually just start like change the speed and kind of build something like a super amazing technology breakthrough overnight. It doesn't happen like that. And it's the same thing, even if we're now in a relatively market downturn, the underlying technology, there are still a lot of people, a lot of team has a lot of money in the space, like and are very committed to kind of continue building this vision. And the product and the underlying technology is also still developing in a very steady space. So what this tells us, and specifically kind of to us, is that like in the last a couple of years, for example, ZK has really progressed in such a fast pace that it has so much surpassed the initial vision of building ZK EVM as a ZK rollup. So you can actually kind of throw almost anything you want in a verifiable environment and enable new kind of user experience and user interaction possibility using ZK technology, and you enable new kind of applications. So like that's why we're actually very confident that in this kind of a market downturn, it's a great time for a new product to emerge, like a DeFi 2.0 to emerge, because we now have ZK 2.0. And this is like our firm belief on this. And another like minor thing from kind of a founder's perspective is that in the time of market downturn, people are generally much more focused because they're on a lot of distractions, right? So like as a founder, in this kind of in this space, if there are distractions, if there are hot trends in the market, you have to chase it. It's not a question on if, it's like how fast you can actually chase this. Because like this is the nature of the market, you have to stay in the game, right? But now like there are a lot less noise, so in fact the development pace of product and market, the useful product and market, is actually going to accelerate. Is my kind of point of view on this.
Thanks, Michael. Seems everyone's quite positive. Apology, Terence, given the time limits, I just skip you because you already shared the 2025, 2026 is very promising. I mean, thank you all the distinguished guests, and thank you all the audience. I will call it today, and thank you everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Please remain at the stage and capture this memorable moment. Thank you. Please give the speaker a round of applause. Thanks. Thank you so much for the very visionary and insightful panel.